Hey y'all, welcome back to my channel. I'm Danielle. I'm the owner of Damn Fancy Creations and the Drunk Flamingo. For today's tutorial, we are going to be making some more of these fun metal pins. A lot of you guys have rewatched my old tutorials that I had up, but those are mainly of Christmas pins. So I wanted to add something that we could also create during summer. We are going to be working with UV resin, my pin wraps, which are vinyl, glitter, and some pinstriping with nail tape. One of the biggest complaints I see with the metal pins is that people cannot remember how to put them back together. So make sure you watch the whole video. At the end of the tutorial, I do go into detail about how to put these pins back together so you guys will not be confused anymore. If you haven't already, make sure you subscribe and hit that notification bell so you don't miss out on any upcoming tutorials. Also, if you want a full supply list, it is in the description, as well as discount codes from my favorite suppliers. All right, y'all, let's jump into this tutorial. Alright guys, so here's what we're going to be using. These are my Flamingo party pin wraps. These were in March's Flock Box. These are the metal pins I have. I get them off of Amazon. And then I just chose some glitter colors that were going to match our pin wraps. I don't know why I have my glove on already. I was like overly prepared. So before we actually start decorating our pins, we are going to detach all of the little parts. I always like to put my little pin parts in a plastic cup. So we're going to start by unscrewing the little clicker. Then you're going to dump out the spring that is in there. Then we're going to unscrew the pointy part and the ink barrel, and then the little part that clicks into the cap comes out. I don't know what all the technical terms are for the pin parts, but you guys can see all the different parts that they have. And I do believe that there is another spring inside the barrel, but it does not come out. So again, we're unscrewing the cap, taking out one spring, unscrewing the pointy part, and dumping everything else into the cup. So I'm just going to speed up the rest of this tutorial. I always like to slow things down if I'm really trying to explain things so you guys can see it a little bit better. So this is my pin turner arm from Cami Page Boutique. I love it. It is a game changer. It is magnetic, so those little metal rods are not going anywhere. The pin attachment does come with all of the metal rods. If you guys do not have one, I highly suggest it. We do have a discount code down below for her shop. And if the metal rod feels a little loose for your pins, I always like to take a very small piece of tape and just put it on the end, slide my pin on there, and it makes the fit a little bit more snug. And I apply or insert the metal rods on the part of the pin where the clicker would be. It's the smaller hole and it fits in there a little bit better. So to paint my pins, I am going to use Miss Lillian's chalk paint, which, surprise, is also from Brooke. And again, y'all know I can never remember the name of this green paint. I just want to call it mint, but it's something like, I don't know, vintage garden. I always put it in the description. The pink may be called New Pink, I think is what it is. And a lot of times I do just base coat my pins with white spray paint. But if I'm using a translucent glitter, I always try to match the base color to the glitter so that the color is a little bit more vibrant. And for this chalk paint, I always do 2 coats. I do 1 coat that's super thin and it dries really quickly, and then I go in with a 2nd coat once that one dries. And I know you guys cannot see on frame, but I do have my little pin attachment set up on my turner. It just slides over one of the PVC arms, and then you use the wing nut to tighten it. And don't even talk about my paint right now. I know I did not shake it up in the jar. I noticed that like halfway through, but it is what it is. It looks like lava. So tip, shake your paint before you use it. So basically what I'm doing is I'm painting my pins, and then I'm just sticking them on the pin attachment for them to dry. And then I just move on to the next one. So while those pins are drying, we are going to go ahead and cut out all of our little pin wraps. And we'll go ahead and wrap the pins that do not have paint on them. And I format my pin wraps to fit the Ink Joy pins. They are a little bit wider and I think longer than the metal barrel pins, but I like the metal ones the best. And for some reason, I think that one of these wraps may have been a little smaller. I'm honestly not 100% sure. I just know that this one matched up perfectly, and I thought that that was really weird. So if one of your pin wraps was not the correct size, let me know. So I'm just using my heat gun to heat up the vinyl a little bit. That way it will help the vinyl kind of smooth out and adhere better to the metal pin. So here's a tip. If you guys have Brooks edging tool, they also work for pins. I always like to leave a little space at the bottom of my pin and the top so that when I do apply the UV resin, I am 100% sure that everything is sealed in. So we have just about 1 to 2 millimeters of the metal showing. So that way when we apply our UV resin, it's going to cover that vinyl completely and be sealed in. And I just love these little patterns. Like, how cute are the freaking pineapples with sunglasses? I love them. So I'm just doing the same thing I did with my first pattern. I'm just cutting a little bit of that backing off so that I can use it as a hinge. Wrap the vinyl around, make sure that everything is straight and lined up correctly before I take the entire backing off of the vinyl. Sometimes it can be a little hard to see if it's actually lined up with pin wraps because they can be a little difficult to curl up since it is such a small piece of vinyl. And for this pin, I did cut a little bit more off of it. I was trying to decide what I wanted to do with it, and then I decided that I wanted to have like one big stripe of glitter and then 2 smaller stripes of glitter. So a lot of times I just kind of go with the flow, and whatever I feel like creating just comes to me in the moment. Especially for pins, I usually don't really go in with too much of a plan, because most of the time it changes by the time I actually start glittering or wrapping a pen with vinyl. See, already, I had my colors picked out and I changed my mind and I went and got some gold. So I am going to be using my double-sided sticky tape. I use the 3M sticky tape, and the kit or group that I purchase has, I think, maybe 6 or 7 different sizes. I do think you can purchase them individually as well. I've had this sticky tape for forever, probably years. I mainly use this, or actually I think the only time that I used sticky tape was when I did my serape and cow print tumbler. I don't use it too much because it can make your colors appear a little bit lighter, especially if you're using translucent colors. If you're using the metallic opaque colors, it's pretty much going to look the same. But with opaque colors, since you have to kind of burnish them into the sticky tape, it's just going to be like one layer deep of glitter. So whatever you base coat your tumbler with is going to show through. So with sticky tape, you just put it on your tumbler, your pen, and then you peel off the top cover, the top backing, I don't know what you call it, the top piece of paper, to reveal the sticky tape. And then you just clearly roll your pen all in the glitter. I just kind of dipped it in there, and I'm just burnishing that glitter in there right now. And what I mean by burnishing is just kind of rubbing that glitter into the sticky tape to make sure that it sticks well and that we don't have a bunch of pieces sticking up anywhere. And then I just brush it off with my fluffy brush. So now I'm going to put my glove back on, and I'm going to go ahead and glitter my pen. So I'm glittering with UV resin. This paint is pretty light pink. I usually use a fluorescent pink if I'm going to be using this hot pink, which is Prickly Pear Margarita. But I do not have any more hot pink spray paint. I only like the hot pink spray paint by Krylon, and I cannot find it anywhere now. I can find the Rust-Oleum brand, but I don't like that, which is interesting because I mainly use Rust-Oleum everything for spray paint, but I just don't like their fluorescent pink. It's not as bright of a pink as the Krylon is. It's kind of like a dark or a deep pink. I just don't like it. So for the next one, we're going to be using Ranch Water. This is a fun kind of mint opal color. And I will say that if you are going to use UV resin to apply your glitter, make sure that your glitter is translucent. This one is obviously not translucent, but it worked. Hopefully I won't have issues with this pen. Usually I only use translucent glitter when I'm doing UV resin or using UV resin to apply the glitter, because the glitter has to be translucent so that the UV light can penetrate it and cure the resin. If it's metallic, I'm not really sure how the light penetrates the opaque glitter. I don't really know. That's why I usually use translucent glitter, but this worked for what I needed it to. I was just applying a little bit of chunky teal, and I also use my tea strainer to kind of get that waterfall effect. Y'all know I use my tea strainer almost every time, especially if I'm doing gradients or ombres. So now I am coating this little pineapple pen. And for the first layer, I'm just doing a thin layer. We're just sealing in the glitter and the vinyl. And I know you guys can't see because of my setup, but as soon as I put the UV resin on there, I just click it in the pen adapter, and I have my UV light set up kind of underneath the adapter. And it just spins and cures the pens as they spin. And I use the Let's Resin UV resin. It is my favorite for right now. I used to use CCDIYs, but it is a little expensive and the smell is awful. I know every UV resin is going to have a smell, but the Let's Resin one is really not that bad. I honestly cannot smell it very much at all. And it does cure super, super quick. Most of the time, I can put something under the UV light and it be cured within 20 seconds, maybe 30 seconds. And I will link that also down in the description, as well as my UV light. I do use one of the larger UV lights that I can get on Amazon. And I will usually apply 2 coats of UV resin to each pen after I glitter and apply my vinyl. I believe this is the second coat that I'm doing right now. And after I apply my second coat, I will just let the pens kind of spin for a few minutes just to make sure that everything is cured. If I think that the tops need a little bit more UV action, then I'll resituate the pens and the UV light to aim it directly at the tops or the bottoms of the pens. And after I'm sure that they are 100% cured, I will sand them a little bit and start applying vinyl if I need to, or the pinstripes. And I will say with chunky glitter, you do have to be a little bit more kind of careful with how you place it, because it is such a small little barrel that you want to make sure that no chunky pieces of glitter are sticking up. All right, so now my pens are for sure cured. I'm just buffing it with my little sanding block. This is obviously like hyper speed. And the reason why you want to make sure that it's cured, because if it's not cured and you're sanding like tacky UV resin, that can just get messy and gross and mess up your pen. So I just buffed it, make sure that there's no shards. And I held my drink up because I thought it was funny that the nail tape that I chose matched my soda can. By the way, if y'all have not tried the poppy drinks, the watermelon one is super yummy. So this is nail tape. I just purchased a little set of nail tape, and it comes with all different kinds of colors. And I like using nail tape for pens because they are pretty thin. Sometimes pinstripes that I cut can be a little thick, so they look a little too large for pens, but the nail tape works great. And for this particular pen, I'm just outlining all of the vinyl and then applying the second color next to the first pinstripe color that I laid down. And once I get all of my pinstripes on there, I'm going to take my blade and we're just going to trim off all of the little overhang. So we're just trimming off the tops and the bottom. And I'm sorry I'm out of frame. I try to stay in frame, but sometimes when you're trying to show something up close and you're not looking at the screen, it just throws you off. So now I'm trying to decide what or how I'm going to apply this vinyl. What vinyl is going to go with what color. And how I'm going to cut the vinyl. So I'm just trimming this down a little bit. And I'm folding this in half because I am going to do a V-split. And then I'm just going to cut a little V out of it. Since it's so small, I don't need to measure. And I will say that if you're going to do V-splits or cut your vinyl somehow, make sure before you cut that your little characters or the items on your vinyl are facing the way that you want them to face. You don't want to cut out your little design and then it be upside down. So I just got my little piece of vinyl on there. I'm just trimming this off. And I do use my heat gun, as y'all can see now, just to smooth down that vinyl, make sure there's no air bubbles, make sure there's no wrinkles. And there were a couple bubbles on this particular vinyl, so I'm just popping them with my pin. And then I am getting out some regular pinstripes. I really liked this color. I thought it went well with the vinyl, so we're just using a regular pinstripe for this, not the nail tape. And then I had some extra thin gold cut as well. So we're going to go in and add some gold pinstripes. And I just kind of like crisscrossed them, you know, just trying to be different. It looks so pretty. And if you guys don't know, I do have a PinStripe file on thedrunkflamingo.com, which has 3 sizes of pinstripes on one 12x12 layout or format. And they're the sizes that I use the most, which are 0.07, 0.05, and 0.03. And typically when I cut out pinstripes, I cut out a full sheet at a time. So I have a full sheet of gold, a full sheet of black, white, whatever colors that I want to use. And they're all different sizes. So that way I have different colors and sizes if I want to layer them or do different designs, things like that. So we're going to cut out our last piece of vinyl. And this is one where I didn't even know what I was doing. I was thinking like maybe I could do a basket weave pattern, and it did not work out how I wanted it to. But it ended up being really cute. So, you know, it all works out for the best. So initially I was trying to cut like two crisscross patterns. So I was going to like piece these together. And thinking about it now, it probably would have worked if I would have just like added the other like side of the piece of vinyl. But it's funny how you don't really think about things when they're happening. So instead of doing the crisscross, I just took some pieces from what I cut out and added them to the pin. I'm just kind of cleaning up the edge here. It had some little uneven pieces of glitter. So before I added the vinyl, I wanted to make sure that that edge was as straight as it could be. So we're basically going to have two little triangles pointing down at each other, and then we're going to outline those with pinstripes. And I was trying to see if I could like add like a different piece, but the other side did not match up, and I did not want to try to cut it. But I'm just gonna let this play so y'all can see. Nope, it did not work. So we're going to take those off. They just weren't the same size. I could have trimmed them down if I wanted to, but I just was like, no, we're not even gonna do that. So instead, I'm just heating it right now, make sure everything is down. So I just kind of heat it with my heat gun and then just roll it on my table just to make sure that vinyl is flat. And we're going to take some pinstripes. Again, I'm using some thin gold that I have. And I know, don't come for me. I know I'm out of the screen, y'all. I know. This has been like a problem since day one. At least it's not my hair anymore. It's hard to like focus when what you're working with is so small. But I'm just outlining the vinyl with some pinstripes. That's all I'm doing. Just pinstriping. And then I'm using my blade to trim those off again. And I will, again, use my heat gun to make sure that those pinstripes are down, that the vinyl is down. That is the worst thing ever when you're working on a project and you put UV resin or epoxy over it, and then the dang pinstripes lift up and just cause a headache. So now that I'm sure that everything is down good, everything looks good, we are going to go back and put the final coat or two of UV resin on all of our pins. So this pin, we're not doing pinstripes or extra vinyl or anything like that. So I just sanded it, cleaned it with some alcohol, and we're applying our final coat of resin. Then I'm popping it on the pin adapter and letting that UV light cure it. Same thing for this pin. We're just carefully going around the top edge and then smoothing that UV resin down the rest of the pin. And the pineapple pin, smoothing on all that UV resin. And I apply UV resin pretty much the same way I do epoxy. I like to go around the top and bottom edges, and then I smooth the resin or epoxy from top to bottom to make sure everything is covered. We don't have any spots that aren't covered with resin, and there are no big globs just floating around the pen. So I'm going to put those on there. If I need to do another coat, like this one, for example, that chunky glitter needed a couple extra coats. But I just kind of look at them and see. And this one, we're just making sure that everything is covered. But you guys can see how quickly that cures. I mean, obviously this is sped up a lot, but I'm able to apply a second coat of UV resin by the time I get done applying the first coat to the last pin. So it cures fairly quickly. And after I apply the last coat of UV resin to the last pin, I like to let them sit under the UV light for about 10 or 15 minutes just to make sure that everything is cured properly. After they are cured, we're going to put all of our pins back together. So I like to start by putting all of the pieces together for each pin. So I just start by laying out all of the pieces so I know what pieces go with which pin. And this is in real time so you guys can really kind of see how I put everything back together. So we are going to start with one finished pin. So we are going to start by inserting the little clicker part with the little threaded piece, which is going to screw into the cap. So we're going to place that in at the tip of the pin, headed towards the back of the pin. We're going to take a little spring, and it goes around that little white part. So we're going to slide this spring around the white part, and then we're going to take the cap, or the clicker, whatever you want to call it, and we're just going to put it in between the spring and screw it around until it catches that white threaded piece and you cannot screw it anymore. So once it's screwed in as tight as you can get it, we're going to put in the ink barrel and screw on the cap. Ta-da! And it works. And then always just make sure that you click it and everything works correctly. So I will go ahead and show you guys how I do the rest of these pins. So we're going to take the threaded white piece, put it in, put the spring around the threaded white piece, and then take the cap or clicker and screw it into the threaded piece. And then take the ink barrel. And if the cap comes off, that's fine. You can just put it back in there and screw it in. Look how pretty this one is. I love how this one turned out. I just love these little pineapples. And of course, ranch water is one of my favorites. So even though these pens do have a lot of little pieces that need to go in a certain way in order for the pen to be put back together, I love the metal pens a lot better than the Ink Joy because there's really no prep time. And yes, I do not sand my metal pens. I don't sand my tumblers either. That's just a personal preference and just from what I have discovered through stripping my cups. But if you want to sand, go for it. I'm not gonna tell anybody their way is better or not. And yep, once you get your pins back together, that is pretty much it. I do suggest not leaving these in hot cars or anything like that. because these are resin, and we all know that heat will soften the resin. So if you want to keep these looking great, just keep them in your purse or at your office. This one might be my favorite. It's so cute. All right, guys, well, here are some finished pictures of my pens. I had to use my little plants for props because I just love my plants. I love these little flamingos. And yep, if you're wondering, I do have vinyl patterns, full sheets, and these same patterns. So you can make a tumbler to match your pen, or keychains, or anything else you want to make with it. But I hope this video was helpful for you guys. I know that pens are a big craft that y'all like to do that may be a little bit easier and simpler to complete than a larger tumbler. It's also just a fun craft to do. And if you guys decide to use my pen wraps and create your own, please post in the group, because I love to see what you guys come up with, how you put your own spin on things, and what kind of stuff inspires y'all. So thanks for watching, y'all. Have a good day. If you enjoyed this tutorial or learned something new, please be sure to like, subscribe, and share. Don't forget to catch the next video coming up that was picked just for you. As always, if you're looking for more tips, tricks, or tutorials, be sure to check out my tutorial group on Facebook or my Drunk Flamingo group. Both are linked in the description. Thanks for watching.